Well, hello everyone. This is Jo-an Lantz, and I'm so excited to welcome you to our inaugural interview, Masters of Extraordinary Proficiency. For the next year, once a month, I'll be sharing and introducing to you individuals who have accomplished extraordinary things. Basically, ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. And today I would like to welcome Paul Bellantone, President and CEO of Promotional Products Association International. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Jo-an, how are you? Thank you for having me on your new broadcast.
Well, thank you and Happy New Year. I'm excited. This is
Happy New Year to you too.
Not everybody who's watching this knows what Promotional Products Association International is, or PPAI. What the heck is PPAI?
PPAI is a trade association. So I think for people who aren't familiar with us, they could think about the industry that they're in and who is that nonprofit body that's out there that's helping that industry, helping grow and protect that industry. PPAI specifically is the trade association for promotional products and promotional product professionals, people who make and sell things with logos on them. And my job and the job of the staff and the things behind you, the job of the PPAI staff is to help grow and protect the industry. So it's basically to give the members, like Geiger, the tools that they need to do business, but also create fertile ground and clear a path for them to do that business. So whether that be through regulation, through creating research, through government relations work that we do. So my job is to make sure that I'm planting trees in anticipation of needing shade, but also helping our members take advantage of opportunities that are in the market today.
Well, speaking of today, you're launching a virtual trade show.
We are.
How is this different from other virtual events?
I think it's in the purpose of developing it. So our differentiator is our why. And you know that it's replacing our inaugural live event, in-person event, the PPI Expo, which is one of the largest trade shows in the industry, in any industry. And that show really had three purposes. It was to help our members facilitate business with each other. It was a giant revenue creator for the trade association, but it was also the glue that that held our industry together. It's where we all got together as professionals. The difference came in why were we creating the virtual, and it really was to maintain that connectivity. So many virtuals that are out there are a replacement for revenue that an organization may have lost. We took the opposite approach and said, our goal in creating this virtual event is to mimic as best we can recreate the connectivity that our industry looks for at the expo. So you'll see when you do participate in, and your representatives, that it's more about how do we socialize and how do we network and how do we keep that interchange of information for our members together, less about what was PPAI able to sell in order to keep revenue coming in. Obviously there's a revenue play in it, but the first two goals, it was that industry glue and connectivity of our members.
For me personally, I have attended the PPAI trade show every year in January throughout my business career. And I have met my mentors and people who have guided me. And this was an event where that connection was very real and helped me launch on the career path that I am today.
Jo-an, we were very probably more ritualistic about things than we ever thought. And this year has really brought that to light. In the first 14 or 15 days of every year, we had New Year's, then my birthday was a couple of days later, and then we would meet in Germany, either at a breakfast or a dinner or a bar, and we would connect on the year, and then we would go to the expo, and we really covered the globe and kicked off a new year within the first couple of weeks. Our goal with the virtual event, Direct to You, is to see if we can mimic as many of those things as possible so that people keep that momentum moving forward.
Do you have any tips for other organizations who might be listening to this cast and be considering a virtual event?
To understand your why. More
Hmm.
important than, I think, the how you do it and the tools and the tactics that you put into place to create the virtual event need to follow from why are you creating this virtual event. One of the reasons why I agreed to be with you on this video wasn't because the world needs another video. I
That's
thought
true.
that you were taking an interesting why to it, a different approach, a different it, the way that you've explained it to me made it something that I would be interested in watching. So but that comes from a why. It wasn't because we needed one more video to watch today.
Well, it's interesting you share that because I do want to shift. A couple of years ago, you did something almost unheard of for me. You went on a extended sabbatical. Where did you go and what was it like?
Well, I was just celebrating my 20th year with the organization.
Wow.
And while I'd always taken vacations and I've always tried to spend my free time differently, I never felt like I was able to completely immerse myself in the places I was going and the people I was with. So about 6 or 7 months in advance, I asked my board of directors. I let them know it is something I wanted to do. I had originally asked for 3 months. They scaled back to 2 months. Um, and I did 4 or 5 different things. I asked each of the significant people in my life if they can go anywhere in the world for 7 to 10 days, what would it be? And I took each of them on individual trips. So with my daughter, we went to the UK and we watched live music all over um, London and the UK. For my son, it was camping in the mountains of Georgia. For my significant other at the time, it was Prague and Prague and Vienna. But in between each of those trips that we went on individually, I did something for myself. So I spent a week learning yoga in Belize, and then I went to Assisi, Italy, and studied meditation. And then I went to Siena and took a cooking class and stayed with a chef at their home. So it was just this extraordinary mishmash of experiences that I wouldn't be able to get from 7 separate vacations because obviously it takes time to turn on and turn off and
Mm.
be prepared for it. But also, it allowed me to fully immerse in everything that I was doing by having that block of time.
Well, and as a president, CEO, you don't take vacations, which is very interesting.
I know.
You never unplug and you simply don't take a vacation. So it's probably a career of vacations, so sort of all accrued.
Yeah.
And
The interesting thing, I learned as much. It didn't it didn't quench my thirst doing it. I think it whet my appetite to
mm,
do more things like that. It wasn't like, well, I did this and now I can um, now I'm satisfied. It almost drove more curiosity about each of the things that I did. And and people always ask me, what did I get from it? Um, I think what I got from it most was what did it take to plan to do that? I learned how to be disciplined on my technology. I learned to unsubscribe from things before I headed out of town um, prior to going. It taught me to trust my staff in a way that um, that I never had before because I knew I would always be present. And for those 7 or 8 weeks, I didn't receive one email, text, or phone call from staff. They knew
and
when they could reach me, but they ran the business. And that to me was the true learning experience.
you weren't on social media either. You completely unplugged. You really did. Did it
Yeah.
change you? Did it change you?
Um, it, it, it taught me things. I don't know that everything lasts. I learned that I cannot do yoga. I can meditate. I learned that food tastes better in Italy.
Mm.
Democracy seems more important when you're in Czechoslovakia. I learned, you know, those little good
Little,
rock and roll music sounds better in London. It taught me to appreciate things that I've loved in ways that I might not have experienced otherwise.
not everybody has the luxury, whether it's family commitments, certainly financial commitments,
Sure.
that they could go on a sabbatical. How could they step away or try something similar in a much shorter amount of time?
I don't know that there was any part of what I did, Jo-an, that wasn't scalable. The things that I did in the 6 months preparing my board, preparing my staff, preparing myself, I think those could be taken in smaller bites. I've learned that I'm not going to sleep with my phone on my nightstand anymore, and that I don't respond to emails for the first hour after I wake up, and I don't send them for the hour before I go to bed, because then you're just putting it into somebody else's to-do list. I learned more little things like that out of that giant process. On the meditation has become very important to me, and to everybody that means something else, but just taking that time for yourself, uninterrupted time. I sit alone in my office for 20 minutes with the door closed, and sometimes it's a great meditation and other times it's a wonderful nap. But
Wow.
either way, you don't have to go to a CC to do that. But I think that all of those things are very scalable and we can condense them.
In the world of social work, it's called respite care. And so what you're describing is a variation of respite care where we all need to take care of ourselves sometime and step away, no matter what is pulling upon us, and pulling
You're
us
a
in.
runner, right? I know that your running does that for you. I know the
Mm,
things that we all have our own. I think it was an opportunity to find out which things were really important to me.
mm. Paul, you're a CEO over 22 years with the organization.
Yeah.
And you made an unusual announcement, an unusual step last November. You actually shared and announced that you're going to be leaving your position in May, which caught everybody by surprise because the
Yeah.
association is very successful and you're successful. I can't imagine what my life is about because this is all about me, right? You're leaving your position, but how's it going to affect me?
Yeah.
Um, why? Why why did you make that decision?
Well, I don't
Hard.
know that I can separate that decision from my sabbatical. It
Hmm.
taught me that there are other things in my life that I'd like to nurture. And while the job at the association has afforded me the opportunity to do some of those things, the one thing that I don't have the luxury of is time, as much time as to do all those things. But to be very candid, you and I spoke last fall before my contract renewal about what does the next iteration of me look like? Where do I get to bring meaning? And what is my next adventure, from a career standpoint? And those conversations help drive that a little bit, gave me the confidence to feel like I can do anything. And I'd like to say that COVID didn't have anything to do with it, but it did. It's not the reason, but it's part of the story. COVID forced me to recognize the things I enjoy doing and the things that I don't enjoy doing. And I'm a builder. Um, and COVID forced me, and over the last 9, 10 months, to get really, really good at things that I really, really, really don't want to do. And
Ah,
um, so it was a number of things. It's also a lesson for the association, and I've been trying to express this to my board, that every time because I had a renewal in place, I was signed up and ready to go. And I think that every time a renewal happens again in the future, I'll recommend this to the board, that they create a new job description. And both parties need to determine am I the person that could do that new job description that board has created, but also would I apply for that job if it was posted? And I thought that was, you know, look, I say that with the blessing of the luxuries to be able to make a decision in the middle of a pandemic not to move forward on a contract. So not everybody has that luxury. But I didn't want to waste a good pandemic without looking at the opportunities that were open to me.
It's really interesting. And it's very transparent of you to share this. This was very personal. And it's what makes you extraordinary. It really does, because you are sharing something deeply personal about how you're shifting your life in ways that who knows. Where do you see yourself in a year, Paul?
Boy, that's like the $1 million question, isn't it? I am hopefully doing something really meaningful. And whether that's small and meaningful or large and meaningful or inside this industry or outside the industry, um, I don't I don't know if you can find a more purposeful job than running an industry's trade association.
Mm.
I'd like to find something that brings the same level of meaning. Um, and that's my new challenge. What do I want the next iteration of that to look like?
Sounds like we might want to revisit this question a year from now. And that would be a great way to start the new year. Because who knows a year from now? If you had
Who knows?
asked me a year ago where we would be, I would be totally wrong, because
Oh my goodness.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I know. Um, can you share 3 lessons you've learned from the pandemic and this journey that started years ago and that you're still in the midst of?
Um, boy, oh boy. So
Mm,
yesterday, it was just yesterday, I shared with you because we would normally be in Germany right now. I
mm,
shared something that I read with you and another colleague of mine, and it said 2020 could be defined as looking both ways before you cross the street and then getting hit by a submarine. And I thought that was so, and I think it really speaks to when you said if we had asked a year ago, where did you think you'd be? It, I learned that there's a huge difference between planning and preparing. We planned for last year in January. We're preparing for this year in January. That submarine out of nowhere. Is the vaccine going to work? Is it not going to work? And I think you become like I'm planning for the sun to rise tomorrow, but I'm preparing for everything else after that. Because we just
yeah.
don't know. You run a different organization when you do that. You look at every challenge and opportunity a little bit differently when you're preparing for multiple eventualities. So I think that would be one. Um, the second one was I now have a don't do list. Like I lived my life with a to do list. I've stopped taking on as many things as I'm very selective about the things that I take on right now. And a real management example is, we cut our staff from 80 to 40. Very, very painful thing. So, but now when we're faced with a new opportunity or we have to do something, we said, well, where are we going to get those 80,000 man hours from? And when you break it down into that, some things have to stop being done. So I've learned to separate the timely from the timeless. What are the things we do because it's what PPAI does at its core? What are the things that Geiger does because it's what Geiger does, right? Those are your timeless ones. Your timely ones were those things that you just did because they made sense at that moment. Those are the things we're getting rid of. Somebody told me when you're accepting invitations, if you get invited to something, make the decision based on whether or not you would do it that day. Because otherwise you're just punting your decision a couple of months down the road or a couple of weeks or a couple of days down the road. Make your decision, say yes, say no, move on. And it's been liberating, Jo-an. And I think the final thing is I am an introvert at heart.
Mm.
The first couple of weeks of this pandemic, I thought it was made for me. We were made for each other. Paul and pandemic, it's great. I get to be, and I really learned how much I actually I've learned over the last 9 months how much I really appreciate my connectivity with other people, and that was a lesson that I don't know that I would have had any other way. And it makes me ask myself, if I knew that last year would be my last expo as CEO, what would I have done different? And I would tell you the hugs probably would have been a little bit longer. The the conversation's a little bit more meaningful. I would have probably stepped back a little bit and appreciated what was in front of me. What about you? If you knew that there were going to be a lot of people that you weren't going to see for 2 years, what would you have done differently last January?
Mm, that's you've given me a lot to think about, including this last question.
Well, I guess that's the point. I didn't solve it
Yeah,
in March. It took
yeah,
me almost until Thanksgiving this year to really reflect and saying, boy, what am I going to do those first 2 weeks in January if I'm not with Jo-an in Germany and with 20,000 of my closest friends in Las Vegas.
that's right.
So
Me and prepare to go to Hong Kong.
that's
Uh,
right.
Paul, you inspire me. You're always provocative and make me think everything about what I would not do. And I've spent a lot of time this past year thinking about my relationships. We both have had loss in the past year, and
Yes.
that really does trigger some real important questions about ourselves and the time we spend. And I can't think of anybody better to be the first person that I would speak with in terms of uh, uh, proficiency and exemplary proficiency, because you are certainly that person. And I wish we could spend more time together. Wait a minute, we
It's
will
been
spend
wonderful.
more
We will
time
spend more time
together,
together.
no
That I
matter
know.
where you go. No matter where you go, I'll make that a priority. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for giving me your time today. Good luck on your virtual show. I'll be there. I'm logging
Good.
in a few moments, and I just can't say enough about how I wish you the very, very, very best.
Thank you, my friend. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You are a master of extraordinary proficiency. Take
Thanks,
care.
John.